He's going to send us something.
Our email? It's mail overnight. Mail,
All right. We ready for the jury, State?
Yes, sir.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's get the jury.
All right, jury in the courtroom.
Everyone else may be seated at this time. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good afternoon. Welcome back. Did everyone have a nice lunch? Yes. Very good. Did anyone discuss anything about the case, or was anyone exposed to anything about the case by show of hands? Let the record reflect there are no hands. Again, thank you all very, very much. We are going to pick up where we left off, and I am going to ask the state to now please call their next witness.
Crime scene investigator Robert Durr.
Robert Durr. Mr. Durr, good afternoon and welcome. If you'll come forward to be sworn, wherever you're comfortable, if you'll face me and raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Durr. If you'll follow the bailiff to your right, to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step. Go ahead and have a seat in that chair at the end. Make yourself comfortable, and that microphone in front of you is adjustable. You let me know when you're ready, and I'll turn it over to the attorneys.
All righty.
Thank you. Will you state your name and spell your last name?
It's Robert A. Durr III, and it's D-E-R.
Mr. Durr, where do you work?
At the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been there?
About 16 years.
Back in 2010, were you working at the sheriff's office?
Yes, ma'am.
What was your title and your role?
I'm a crime scene investigator.
What are you now?
A crime scene investigator.
Same thing you were back then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's talk about November 28th of 2010. Were you asked to process a vehicle, specifically a Chevy Venture van?
Yes, ma'am.
Where'd you process this vehicle?
At our crime scene garage.
Do you have a big bay where you can actually pull a vehicle into that bay and work it up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when part of your work, can you do that at locations other than potentially a crime scene?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the reason for that?
So in the bay, not only being climate controlled, it's also a secured area, so with limited access, which allows us to protect any potential evidence that might be inside of a vehicle.
You can close those bay doors. You can keep things secure.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, let's talk about what you're doing to process a vehicle. Do you have procedures for how you go through these steps?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do first?
First, I photograph the vehicle, starting with the exterior and then working my way to the interior.
Do you have a methodology of how you're going to take those photographs?
Yes, ma'am.
So you work your way around the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so walk me through that.
So I will start on usually either the front or the back, depending on which is easier to get to. And then I usually work my way around, taking photographs of the front, from the front angle, the side, all the way working around the vehicle. And then I start moving into the interior of the vehicle, usually starting on the driver's side and then working my way around.
All right. I am going to show you photographs that have been moved into evidences already, but then others that have not. Have you had a chance to look at all of these photographs prior to your testimony today?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize these photographs?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm showing defense what has not been moved into evidence, which is State's Exhibit 183, 186, 185, 182, and 184. Judge, at this time it has to move into evidence the exhibit numbers I just read off.
Any objection?
No objection.
Goes to be admitted.
Now, Mr. Durr, let's go through some of these photos as you talked about kind of the way that you went around this vehicle. 181. Actually, I'm starting on the opposite side of where you normally start, aren't I?
That doesn't matter.
We'll go backwards. Okay. 181. What are we looking at here?
So that is the front passenger side, then the exterior.
180.
That would be the rear of that same side of the vehicle.
Where is this vehicle when this photograph's taken?
That is in our crime scene garage.
Inside that bay area you were referring to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Oops, sorry. 179.
So that is the right rear of the vehicle.
178.
That would be the driver's side or the left rear.
177.
That's on the driver's side.
176.
That would be the front part of the driver's side.
And then 175.
That would be the very front of the vehicle.
Have we gone all the way around the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that, I went backwards, but is that essentially how you would photograph that vehicle prior to doing anything else?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you take interior photographs at that point?
Yes, ma'am.
184. Now I'll go in the correct direction that you went. What are we looking at here?
So that would be the driver's side front, the interior, so you can see the door, and then the front seat area.
Have you touched, moved, or disturbed anything yet?
Other than opening the door, no.
$182. Driver's side?
Yes, ma'am.
Standing outside the car looking in.
Yes, ma'am.
$185. Where's this?
So that would be the area right behind the driver's side front seat. So the sliding door on the driver's side. I
Do you
opened
have-
it.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I just opened it and took the photo.
Do you have the opposite side sliding door open at this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Opposite side front passenger door open at this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you open all the doors before you're taking your interior photos?
As I'm taking them, yes, ma'am, we'll open them up.
186. Where's this in the vehicle?
So that's the rear cargo area. So I've opened the rear hatch or the rear door.
Standing at the back of the car looking towards the front of the car.
Yes, ma'am.
183.
So that would be the passenger's front seat area.
Now the items we're seeing in this photograph, specifically the cell phone and the cup, have those been touched, moved, disturbed?
No, ma'am.
Photographed in place?
Yes, ma'am.
After you take your photos, what do you do next?
So I will swab areas of the vehicle sometimes, depending on what the detective wants. So the steering wheel, gear shifts, seat belts, all before we start disturbing anything.
Okay, so
Then we
I'm going to stop you right there for a second. What's a swab?
A swab is a cotton swab, kind of like what you would see at the doctor's office.
Like a giant Q-tip.
Like a giant Q-tip.
Okay.
And we will dampen it with distilled water. So, meaning that we keep the bottle from touching the swab, so it'll be free-flowing drops. Then I'll swab the area. I'll rub it vigorously on the area, trying to pick up anything that might be there.
Now, fair to say that you don't know if you're getting anything when you're actually swabbing these surfaces,
Correct.
saving any potential evidence for someone else to potentially process.
Correct.
After you conduct your swabbing, and you went through some of the specific areas that you swabbed, do you then go to looking for latent prints?
We will usually take the items out of the vehicle first.
Okay. What do you do with them when you take them out of the vehicle?
So we'll lay them out on pieces of brown paper
Why?
to make it easier to photograph and so we don't lose anything.
Does it also help keep it from contaminating anything on the ground, or the ground contaminating anything that may be on that item?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you're taking those items out, are you photographing them, documenting what you're taking out, all of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they laid out in a manner that you can save them for a later purpose if needed?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they packaged and put into evidence?
The pieces of paper or the items?
I should have been clear. The items.
The items, yes, ma'am.
Butcher paper's thrown away.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How do you go about processing a vehicle or the contents for prints?
So for latent prints on the vehicle, I used black fingerprint powder and a fingerprint brush. It's applied to areas of the vehicle, like we start with the exterior, then work our way interior. The exterior, so like the driver's side front door, I will process that area for fingerprints. And then if I find anything, I'll move on to lifting.
So when you're dusting and then eventually lifting, are you sometimes able to see maybe a potential latent lift?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm looking for areas that look like ridge detail. So if it looks like a fingerprint, I will lift it.
Does that guarantee you're getting anything?
No, ma'am.
Does that guarantee that somebody down the road is going to be able to analyze that and come up with anything?
No, ma'am.
Back to what we were talking about with the swabs, are you collecting almost anything and everything in hopes of preserving what may be there?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so you swabbed the front driver's side exterior door?
I processed it for
I
prints.
said
Yes,
swab. You process it for prints. What about the front driver's side interior door?
Yes, ma'am.
And then the driver's side seat belt, did you dust that for prints?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were you able to get any lifts off of any of those items?
Yes, ma'am.
How many lifts did you get off of the front driver's side exterior door?
3.
And then off of the seat belt?
1.
Any interior lifts?
No, ma'am.
So when we're talking about no lifts, was there, well, let me ask you this way. When you say no lifts, what does that mean?
That means I didn't find any areas that look like fingerprints
All right.
to be able to lift.
Do you go to the other side of the vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you also process that for potential prints?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you process the passenger side on the interior and exterior?
Yes, ma'am.
How many lifts do you get there?
0.
What about the rear view mirror?
Yes, ma'am. I processed that.
And how many lifts there?
0.
And what about the radio?
I got 0 lifts.
Okay. Do you process the items that are in the vehicle for potential fingerprints?
Yes, ma'am.
What types of surfaces are you focusing on that are typically most conducive to holding a fingerprint?
Something that a person might readily touch more often. Drink cups, water bottles, soda cans.
Do some surfaces hold prints better than others?
Yes, ma'am.
What type of surfaces tend to hold a print the best?
The smooth surfaces.
Clean surfaces?
Clean and smooth, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do plastic cups, plastic bottles, you said drinking containers, do those tend to hold a print better than maybe fabric?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Do you focus your attention on some of the items that are in the vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you focus on?
There was a ginger ale can, there was water bottles, there was 2 different gas station drink cups.
Okay. 10 different drinking cups or bottles total?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you obtain any lifts from those cups?
Yes, ma'am.
How many?
I got, looks like 8.
Right. Showing defense what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 116C. Mr. Juror, have you had an opportunity to view what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 116C previously?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize it?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it in the same or substantially same condition as the last time you saw it?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there additional writing there?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Judge, at this time I'd ask to move into evidence what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 116 as 116.
Any objection?
No objection.
116 will be admitted.
What is it's 116C. I forgot to add the C.
116C will be admitted.
Thank you. What is permission to publish?
Publish.
What is 116C?
That is one of the lift cards that I received off of a racetrack.
Okay, so let's not focus on the writing first. I want to focus on kind of the gray-black area.
Okay.
It's gonna. What are we looking at when we look at 116C?
So the grayish black area, that is actually the fingerprint powder that is adhered to areas on the drink cup. And
Okay.
then if you look off to the sides, the more clear area where you can see kind of a defined edge, that's actually the edge of the tape, which was used to make the lift.
So let's back up a little bit and let's talk about how exactly do you make a lift?
So a lift is essentially we put down, after we have placed the fingerprint powder down, we've developed an area we want to attempt to lift. We use a clear tape. It's either clear or frosted. In this case, it was clear, which is a fingerprint tape. This one would happen to be the 4-inch tape.
Essentially like a giant roll of Scotch tape.
Essentially, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then there's a white card.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you apply that tape to that card then?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the purpose of doing that?
So that way it preserves the possible fingerprints, and now we can have that sent over to our identification section for further evaluation.
Now let's go back to your photographs, and I want you to show me exactly which item States Exhibit 116C, the latent lift, came from. Showing you 183. Let me back out. In this photograph, do you see, once it clears up, do you see the item that you lifted 116C off of?
Yes, ma'am.
What is it?
That is the racetrack cup that's in the center console.
This one right up here?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall exactly where on the cup you got your lift from?
No, ma'am. I don't
Just that it
exact-
came from the cup?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If I use the word phenolphthalein, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
What is it?
That is a presumptive test for blood.
Did you conduct any phenolphthalein testing on the vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
What areas did you focus on?
Oh, it was several areas. I can give you the exact ones here if you.
Was it the gas pedal,
Yes, ma'am.
brake pedal,
Yes, ma'am.
and stains on the front driver's side floor mat?
Yes, ma'am.
Were your results from that testing all negative?
Yes, ma'am.
What does that mean?
That means I did not return a positive result for the possible presence of blood.
Now, if there was something that was a positive hit, does it require further testing?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're not making any determinations at this point as to whether blood's present if you get a positive hit from phenolphthalein testing?
Correct.
All right. Before we move on to the other items that you process on other days and other locations, did you conduct a full search of that Chevrolet Venture van that I showed you the photographs of?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you remove all items from inside that vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when we're talking about a full search, does that mean you're looking under seats?
Yes, ma'am.
Does that mean that you're opening every compartment?
Yes, ma'am.
Full search, full search.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you locate a Glock 45?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so let's move on to November 30th of 2010. Did you do work on that day in regards to this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you receive, through chain of evidence, 3 identification cards?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you do with those?
I processed them for latent fingerprints.
Did you use the same black powder methodology?
Yeah, I did, with the addition of adding superglue fuming.
Okay, so tell us about that.
So superglue fuming is basically we put the items in a chamber where it's controlled for humidity, and then we heat up the superglue. The fumes then will adhere to any of the moisture in the fingerprints, and that allows us to possibly do more processing to the items. So it makes it so that it's not a one-shot. I might have another chance to try and get the fingerprint off.
I'm jumping back because I forgot something. Showing you States Exhibit 183 again. What's that sitting on the seat?
A Samsung cell phone.
Did you impound that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Showing defense 183A. Have you had a chance to look into 183A already?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize the contents?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, at this time I'd ask to move into evidence what's been pre-marked as States Exhibit 183A as 183A. No objection. Okay. Is the cell phone that you found on the front seat in this package?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, sorry, let's go back to superglue fuming. On those driver's licenses, did you superglue fume them first?
Yes, ma'am.
Does the black powder then get applied on top of that superglue fuming?
Yes, ma'am.
What are your results for Juan Guitron's identification card?
I did not get any.
What about Gonzalo Guevara?
I did not get any.
And what about Daniel Beltran?
I did not get any.
Were you given a pair of black boots to process?
Yes, ma'am.
What does alternate light source mean?
So an alternate light source is a big fancy flashlight basically that we can control the colors. So I can make it a blue, a red, a green, a yellow, and it's very tight on the colors of the light, which allows us then to look at an item to see if something might react so or fluoresce underneath the different colors of the light spectrum.
When you're using an alternate light source, does that essentially just kind of direct you to something that may be of interest?
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing conclusive.
Correct.
Okay. Do you do phenolphthalein testing on those boots?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you get any positive results?
No, ma'am.
All negative for alternate light source and phenolphthalein testing?
Correct.
Now let's talk about a wallet. Did you receive a wallet as an item of evidence for you to process?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you in fact process it?
Yes, ma'am.
What were your ultimate results for that wallet?
I did not get any.
No ridge detail on that
No
wallet?
rich detail.
Okay. May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes. Cross-examination?
Will state stipulate?
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, great. I'll put the numbers for the record, Your Honor. Exhibit number 22A for the defense and 22B. Thank you. And may I approach the witness? Good afternoon. I'm showing you these two photos. If you could please review those. Are those two additional photos of the same scene you were just speaking about that occurred on November 28th of 2010?
Yes, ma'am.
The vehicle, correct?
Correct.
And Your Honor, if I may pull the screen out and have the witness step down.
Yes. They're going to need you to step in front because when they move it, you won't be able to see it from behind the bar.
And also, once we have it out, Your Honor, if you could confirm with the jury that it's good for you and that the jury can see.
Certainly. Yeah. Members of the jury, I'll just go ahead and say now, if at any time you can't see the screen or hear anything, you raise your hand and let us know. They're going to try to make sure, but if I don't see any hands, that means everybody can see it.
Is this okay?
It is. I don't need to see it unless there's an issue.
All right. I'm going to confirm that these are the numbers state just admitted to you. Yes. So we'll start with Exhibit 175 that the state just admitted. All right, looks familiar to you, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And was this the first photograph from your memory that you took of the vehicle?
It would have been
One of the first.
One of the first ones, yes, ma'am.
And would you describe the front hood of the vehicle to look clean, used, dirty?
Normal car to me.
Like it's been driven,
Yes, ma'am.
not like it's been cleaned recently, correct?
Correct.
Move to State Exhibit 182. Now, can you go through the process in which because there are some areas here in which you lifted for fingerprints, correct?
That would have probably been on the door.
Okay, so
So if we
none
went-
here except for the seatbelt, correct?
The seatbelt, yes, ma'am. Which is really hard to see.
Can you point to it where you can see?
So this looks to be the edge of the seatbelt. So the plastic part, so the area that I would lift from is the actual metal piece, the actual piece that actually goes into the buckle.
And you were able to get a lift of comparison value from there, is that correct?
I was able to get a lift. I don't know if it was compared.
Okay, great. Again, I'm going to ask you specifically about the condition of the vehicle. Obviously, this is a limited photo. It's a close-up, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And in this photo, you can see the mats and the condition of the seats. Dirty, correct?
Correct.
Has not been cleaned recently.
Correct.
Showing you again State Exhibit 183. Was there anything specific on this end that you lifted for fingerprints that you could point to again like you just did?
Only off of the cup here that I took out and I later processed.
And you testified that you had left it the way that it was given to you and the way it was received, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So you lifted the prints that you could find and it was left the way that it was found for you, right?
I took it out to do the list.
Okay, so you take them out first, but you did not move the cup in there?
Prior to, no.
Again, can you see the mats
Yes,
and the
ma'am.
condition of the vehicle? Again, does this portion of the vehicle look like it's been cleaned?
No, ma'am.
$184. This is State's Exhibit 184. Again, is this how the vehicle was received to you, where the wallet was in that upper left-hand corner?
Yes, ma'am.
And then was that the wallet you later took out and examined in order to make an identification of who it belonged to?
Yes, ma'am. We did lay it out and take pictures of it.
And you did that alongside a detective, Detective Dirks, I believe, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were able to determine that this wallet belonged to Mr. Keetley?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Anything, I'm going to ask again, anything here that you processed that we can see from this photo?
You can see part of the door here, so I would have processed this interior of the door here, mainly the glass.
And can you describe what this is? I believe it's State Exhibit, let me go back,
I think it was
186?
186.
Yep, 186 for the record. And can you describe what this photo was that you took?
So this is like the rear cargo area of the vehicle. You can see the front seat up here, the passenger or the driver's and the passenger's front seats, the back side of those, and then this would be the rear cargo area. So I'm coming in from the rear door of the vehicle.
And when you're taking pictures of, for example, in this case, it's a vehicle, you're taking pictures of how you find it to be, in what condition, correct?
Correct.
It's not necessarily for evidentiary value.
Correct.
It's to preserve how it appeared to you when you received it.
Yes, ma'am.
And in this case, you received it again November 28th.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to ask you about the condition of the trunk. Does the trunk appear to you as a vehicle that has been recently cleaned?
No, ma'am.
I'm going to move to Defense Exhibit 22A. Can you describe what this photo is?
So that is the area of the floor between the two front seats.
In the front, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there anything processed that you can see from here?
So yes, ma'am, I did process. You can see there's the two ginger ale cans.
Anything else?
I
I believe the cell phone, correct?
I collected the cell phone, and I think there's a water bottle over there that I processed for fingerprints.
Ask you again the condition of the vehicle. You can see a little bit of the center console where the mats are, obviously trash. Does this appear to be a vehicle that had been recently cleaned?
No, ma'am.
And Defense Exhibit 22B. Can you describe this photo?
So this is the side door of the passenger side of the vehicle, looking in. So this would be like the passenger compartment area.
Asking you again, was there anything processed that you can see from this purview of the vehicle?
In the vehicle itself, no, but there was a few items I collected. I can see a water bottle and I think a Pepsi can over there.
And from this angle, now the back seat portion of the vehicle, does this appear to be a vehicle that had recently been cleaned?
No, ma'am.
All right. You can go ahead and have a seat. I'm going to push this out of the way.
Danny, I'll get it.
Right there. He's right here for now. You testified on direct that there were areas in which you were not able to lift prints, correct?
Correct.
And have you determined areas in which you wish to lift? Is it something that you yourself think this is a good idea, or is it something that you're directed to do?
Most of the time, it's something that I'm looking at myself.
And in this case, there were some areas as well that the detective you were working with would tell you, hey, maybe lift over here. It looks like it potentially be something of value. Is that correct?
Mostly with them, they're telling us what items they would like us to process within the vehicle. So the cans and bottles and stuff, that's what they would do. For the actual lift portions, they don't.
And the reason that you determine which portion and which item to lift is because you're more familiar with substances and the feel for items and which could potentially lift better. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And just because you are unable to lift a print, that does not mean that one was not there at some point, correct?
Correct.
Doesn't mean someone was wearing gloves.
Correct.
Doesn't mean that it was wiped clean.
Correct.
There are a variety of things that could affect the ability to lift a print.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree? That even potentially smearing your hands because you've touched something too many times could affect your ability.
Yes, ma'am.
You indicated on direct that, and I'm going to let you say the test,
Phenolphthalein.
phenolphthalein. And it was on the pictures, were you able to see the area in which,
Some of the areas, yes.
some of the areas, which included the gas pedal, brake pedal, and floor mat of, was it the driver's side?
Yes, ma'am.
All of those came back as negative.
Correct.
There was a second day in which you were asked to process items, November 30th.
Yes, ma'am.
And you were asked to process items, I want to be specific, these were from a totally separate area.
Yes, ma'am. If you're speaking about the driver's license.
I just want to confirm, it wasn't, it was something taken from a totally different scene.
Yes, ma'am. So
So-
that was given to me through our chain of custody.
And you were asked to process those for fingerprints?
Yes, ma'am.
And those, you were unable to for those items?
For latent fingerprints, yes, ma'am.
Was it the same day that you then were asked to process the boots?
Yes, ma'am.
So November 30th.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you aware where those came from?
No, ma'am.
That's not information that was given to you. It was just an item that, in this case, it was an item a detective said, hey, this is something of interest.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you just were not given any background information. You were just asked to process.
Correct.
Again, you used that test.
Yes, ma'am.
And could you describe what it was again
Phenolphthalein.
and what it's used for?
It's used to test for the possible presence of blood.
And you tested, it was one pair of boots, so 2 boots.
Correct.
You tested each boot.
Yes, ma'am.
The sole and the surrounding area of the boot.
Yes, ma'am.
And for each boot, it came back negative.
Correct.
If I might have a moment. No further questions, thank you.
No redirects, you can be released.
And released by the defense or subject to recall?
Subject for recall.
All right, you can step down. You don't need to wait outside, but there's a possibility that they may call you to come back sometime later. I'll ask the state to please call your next witness.
David Beckwith.
David Beckwith. Yep.
TV thing.
Mr. Beckwith, good afternoon and welcome, sir.
Facing the judge.
If you'll come forward to be sworn as a witness, if you'll just raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. If you'll follow the bailiff now to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step. When you get to that chair, go ahead, have a seat, make yourself comfortable. That microphone in front of you is fully adjustable. You let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right, you may proceed.
Go ahead and just scoot up a little bit because I'm going to probably be asking you to speak up some.
Okay.
Will you state your name and spell your last name?
David Beckwith, Beckwith.
Mr. Beckwith, what do you do for work?
Now I'm trying to get back into painting, but I'm still a Luther.
Okay, so let's talk about what a Luther is in a second. Getting back into painting. Is that what you used to do?
Yes.
Did you have 2 injuries or accidents that limited your ability to do that work?
Yes.
Okay, horse trample you?
Yeah, back in 2008.
Okay, and then was there a car accident as well?
Yes.
Okay, just make sure you're answering out loud for me.
In 2011.
All right. Getting out of the painting work and into the luthier work, if I even said that correctly, tell me what that is.
That's I build guitars and stringed instruments.
Are you painting some as well right now?
As for money, yes.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about a couple things before we get into 2010. What part of the county do you live in now?
Apollo Beach.
What part of the county did you...
Hillsborough County.
Okay, south part of the county? Okay. What part of the county did you live in back in 2010?
I still lived in Hillsborough County.
Southern part of the county as well?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a brother named Larry?
I do.
Back in 2010, was your brother married to a woman named Sandra Beckwith?
Yes.
Where did they live?
They lived in between Michael Keetley and his parents.
On Bonita Drive?
Yes.
Now, we've seen this photograph a fair amount, so I'm going to show you an aerial photograph. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
Do you know which photograph I'm talking about?
I think I do.
All right. On the screen behind you, 190A. Do you recognize this area?
Yes, I do.
If you need to stand up and walk over there, just let me know. You can.
Okay.
Where's Bonita Drive?
Can I get up?
You sit down, and there's also a yardstick right there on your right.
Mr.
You
Beckwith.
grab that yardstick and use it as a pointer. No, other side.
There you go, right there.
Benita Drive is right across the street.
Okay. Where did your brother live?
My brother lives right in this patch of trees right here.
So I'm going to call that the clump of trees that's almost dead center of that photograph.
Correct.
You can have a seat if you want. Did Michael Keetley live in a house in front of your brother, closer to Bonita Drive?
That is correct. He's actually on Bonita Drive.
Okay. Where did his parents live? You can stand up. Yep.
Right back in here.
Fair to say your brother's home is right between the two.
Yes, it is.
Did you at some point live in that home with your brother and with Sandra?
I did.
When was that?
On and off between 2008 and 2010.
In 2010, were you living there?
Yes.
Mr. Beckwith, are you a convicted felon?
Excuse me?
Are you a convicted felon?
Yes, ma'am.
How many felonies do you have?
3.
Let's go back to talking about the events and what was going on in 2010. Did you know Michael Keetley in 2010?
Yes.
Did you know him before that?
I just knew him from being a neighbor.
Okay. Were
I've been
you-
told I went to school with him too.
Don't know that for sure, though, at this point. Answer out loud for me.
No.
Okay. So starting in 2010, did you become friendly with Michael Keetley?
Yes.
Did you interact with him a little bit more when you were living at your brother's property?
Yes.
Did you start working with
Ye-
Michael Keetley?
Yes.
So when did that occur?
After he was shot.
Do you remember the months?
Not offhand. It was between July and August.
Okay. Fair to say summertime?
Yes.
What year
2010.
after he shot?
Yes.
Did you know he'd been shot?
Yes.
How'd you know that?
I'm living next door, and plus, being down at the beer shed and seeing the collection jars that they have.
Okay, so you were aware that there was collection jars around
Yes.
town.
Yes.
Did Michael Keetley ever tell you about what happened?
Yes.
Okay, what did he tell you?
He told me he was robbed for $3, or excuse me, $12. There was 3 people.
Okay, $12, 3 people.
Yeah.
Did he give you details on what happened?
This one guy came through. There was a female that approached the window and was inquiring about prices or something, and one came up through the driver's side and one came from the other side and robbed him.
Right. Did you learn that he'd been shot?
Yes.
Did Michael Keetley tell you all of this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you know approximately when that occurred?
No.
Before you're living at your brother's or after you're living at your brother's?
After.
So Michael Keetley shot after you're living at your brother's.
Well, I was It was before that I moved in with my brother that
Okay.
he was shot, and then I moved back in with Larry.
Okay. Fair to say at some point on and off you're living with your brother.
Yes.
So at the time that Michael Keetley shot, are you living with your brother?
No.
Do you move back in with your brother after Michael Keetley
Yes.
shot?
Yes.
At that point, when you're back living with your brother in 2010, do you ever shoot any guns with Michael Keetley?
Yes.
Does this occur before or after Michael Keetley had been shot?
After.
So tell me about this. Where do you guys go? What are you shooting? Give me the details.
Well, it was after work, and I guess he wanted me to be used to shooting the 45. So,
You want me to put the picture back up for you?
yeah,
Okay.
we were,
Hang on a second. I'll give you the photo so you've got reference. 190A. Okay, go ahead.
so
What were
we're
you saying?
shooting out there, and we're probably about,
In between these trees right here, there's usually a burn pile out there with
a small little Alfa Romero or Datsun MG midget kind of car that we're shooting at.
Okay. What kind of gun are you shooting?
I shot the 45.
Were you the only one who was shooting that day?
No.
Who else was?
Michael Keetley and his dad.
Do you see Michael Keetley shoot a gun?
Yes.
What type of gun was it?
380 and the 45.
45 caliber?
Yes.
How many rounds do you shoot through that gun?
I emptied a clip and Mike emptied a clip.
So I want to talk about, well, let me ask you it this way. Did you actually see him, meaning Michael Keetley, shoot the gun?
Yes.
Tell me what you remember seeing.
Him reloading the clip, chambering the bullet, and shooting.
Do you remember what hand he shot with?
His right hand.
Do you remember how he was holding the gun?
I don't recall how he was holding the gun.
Okay.
No.
Do you remember how quickly or slowly he may have fired each of those rounds? Do you understand what I'm asking?
You mean were they like repetitiously fast or slow?
Yeah, so tell me about that.
I wouldn't say they were fast, but they were, about 2 to 3 seconds apart. Pop, pop, pop. He
Okay.
emptied a clip.
Would you consider that, what kind of repetition? Steady, intermittent? How would you describe it?
I would call it steady, but slow.
Okay. Were you watching him while he was firing that gun?
Kind of. I mean, he's in front of me, so.
Are you standing behind him because he's firing
Yes,
a gun?
yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Where are you all, and I know that you described the backside of the property.
Yeah, that's not a very good picture. You can't really see where we were shooting at.
Tell me what you were shooting at. What type of object?
It was a car.
A van or a car?
A car. There was a van out there too.
We'll get to that in a second. Hang on, I'm going to show you a picture in a second. $143C. Does that car look familiar to you?
That's the Jaguar. No, that's not the one we were shooting at.
Different car though, not 143C.
No.
But you know for sure it's a car.
Yes.
Stupid question. Can you tell the difference between a car and a van?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me the size of the car that you're
It was like a Alfa Romero or an MG midget or
little.
like a Datsun V1600, something small like that.
Do you remember not exactly the date, but the time frame when you saw Michael Keetley shooting that 45 caliber?
Well, I had already started working with him when he shot it.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Why do you start working with him, and what are you doing?
What am I doing?
Yep, what are you doing?
I'm selling ice cream
All right, so what's the
and
arrangement?
protecting them.
Okay, what's the arrangement you guys have?
We never really made an arrangement.
So how do you start working with him? Tell me that.
He needed help and I needed work.
All right, that's fair. So what were you doing?
I would be on the truck, he would drive, and I would sell the ice cream, and he would take me around on the routes.
All right, so are you running those routes with Michael Keetley when he's going out to sell ice cream?
Yes,
Are you on the truck with him the
Yes.
whole time?
yes.
So I know you said it was your job to sell the ice cream, but I want to get into the details here. What exactly are you doing when you guys are either loading the truck or on the route, and what is he doing when you guys are loading the truck or on the route? Tell me about that.
I don't understand exactly what you're trying to say.
Okay, so when you're going to start working each day,
Okay,
do you go to his house?
yes.
What do you first do when you get to his house?
Usually it's already loaded, and he needs to turn on the inverter for the AC, because it's
What's an inverter?
that's where, like, if you have a DC current, the vehicles are DC, so and all the freezers and everything that we have in there are AC running, so it has to
Okay.
convert it from DC to AC.
Okay, so you're changing over the power so that the
Yes.
freezers work?
Yes.
My layman's terms of saying it?
Yes.
Okay, who's doing all of that?
Mike takes care of all that.
What's your job when you first get to his house and you guys are getting ready to head out?
Wait and get on the truck, take off.
Okay, so you guys take off. Do you run the same route every day?
Sometimes either in reverse, or sometimes when we end up at the end of the day, sometimes we begin on where we end up.
Okay, what time do you guys normally go out?
See in the afternoon,
Mid-afternoon, late afternoon?
mid-afternoon, between 10 and 11 o'clock. I want to say we start down now, or
Now when you're,
close to 12.
okay, when you guys are driving the truck and you're selling ice cream, what are you doing specifically?
I'm actually taking the money, dispersing the ice cream or the merchandise, and
You ever driving?
no.
Was there a time that you took the truck out by yourself?
I believe there was one time that I took the truck out by myself.
The rest of the time, who's with you?
Mike. Mike
Who's-
was with me.
Who's driving those times?
Mike.
Who's handing out ice cream?
I am.
You guys kind of keep those same roles the whole time?
The whole time, yeah.
All right, I'm looking for a photo of the truck to show you. Here we go. $145. Do you recognize that van?
Yes.
Is there actually a second van as well?
There is another van.
Which van did you use?
I believe that's the van that we were using right there.
Okay.
The other
So-
one has like a metal,
The corrugated metal top to it?
yeah.
All right, so let's talk about this van here. I want to ask you questions about this area, kind of that side door over here. If
Okay.
we were to open that door, what are we looking at inside there?
What do you mean? There's a table. There's like a counter in there.
Okay.
A handmade counter.
What's behind that counter?
What do you mean? What's behind it?
So if you're standing inside the van trying to sell ice cream, where are you selling from?
I'm selling from behind that door would be like a table, kind of like this is, and there would be a shelf underneath here on the side, and then on the end of it there was where the holster is for the 45.
Okay, we're going to get to the gun in just a second. If you were to be in that van standing at that counter and you turned around behind you, what's behind you?
Behind me is another counter that has, I think there's a hot plate back here in the back with the cheese. And then we had a display of like chips and things like that and candy.
Are there chest freezers in there as well?
Is there what?
Chest freezers, big deep freezers.
Yeah, the chest freezer is facing the back.
Okay. From the driver's seat, can you walk back into this area in the
Yes.
back of the truck?
Yes.
When you're back in that part, and I keep saying truck, I mean van. When you're in the back area of that van, are you staying kind of in that front counter area and in the back area?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Was that a yes? Thank you. How did you guys split the proceeds? How did you split your profits when you were working with the defendant?
I never asked him to split the profits with me, but yeah, he was splitting pretty much the profits with me.
Did you guys split it?
Yeah,
How'd you split it? 50-50?
pretty much, yes.
Okay.
I think it was 50-50.
So you mentioned on the side of the counter there being a gun holster. Let's talk about that. Tell me about it.
That's where the 45 was stashed on.
Do you
on
know
the
what
side.
type of gun it was? I know you said the caliber, but do you know the manufacturer?
I believe it was a Glock.
Was that the same gun you had previously fired with Michael Keetley on the property?
Yes.
Right. So why is that gun there?
Because he was robbed, and I wasn't going to go on the route without having something to protect myself.
Right? Was that the only gun on the truck?
No, Mike carried a gun on him too. Actually, he
he-
carried two. He had a 380 and a little 22.
Right. Are those up front or are they back with you?
They're in his possession. They're on him.
45's with you though.
Yes,
Maybe not on your hip, but with you.
yes.
Was it within arm's reach essentially at any
Yes,
point
it
that
was.
you're in the back of the truck? Okay.
Now, once the truck's all filled up, there's not really much room to move around, so yeah, I was pretty much readily available.
Describe that gun to me.
It was a composite.
Let me stop you for a second. Describe the 45. I should have been clear on which gun I was talking about. Describe the 45 caliber gun to me.
It's a composite.
What does that mean?
It means that it's plastic. It's like it's not made of metal.
Okay. What color was it?
Grayish black.
Do you see Michael Keetley in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
Will you point to him and tell me what he's wearing?
He's wearing a black suit with a light blue shirt.
You want to please let the record reflect the witnesses identify the defendant. Did the defendant tell you anything about that 45? That's registration.
Oh, it was it's what he called a untraceable. He said he got it from a friend of his.
Okay, so while you guys are running your ice cream route, do you ever hear the defendant ask any questions to anybody about his robbery when he was robbed and he was shot?
Yeah, it seemed like it happened almost every day.
So tell me about that.
Which occasion? I mean,
Okay, so let's start with the first occasion you hear about that. What are you hearing? What is he saying?
there's not much being said of anything except for, that they think that they know who did it and they'll get back to him.
Let me stop you for a second. When you're saying they, who are you talking about?
I'm talking about out in Wyoming.
Okay, are these people walking up to the van, or is this something that the defendant?
Yeah, they're walking up to the van buying refreshments, things like that.
Okay, so
It's over
somebody's
by the rec center.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Somebody's walking up to the van.
Sure.
Do you ever hear the defendant ask questions of whoever that person may be walking up to the van about the defendant being robbed and shot?
Yes.
What do you hear?
At what time? I mean, I've heard so many different things on that truck.
Okay, let me ask it a different way for you. Did you ever hear the defendant asking questions of people who came up to the truck about did they know who robbed or shot him?
Yes.
How are those questions being asked?
Interrogatively.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that he's not just trying to nonchalantly, just in conversation, ask questions. He's more inquisitive, straight to the point.
Okay, what's he saying?
Judge, I'm going to object. Can we have date and time here? Some semblance of.
All right, let's narrow the time frame.
Is this after the defendant's been shot?
Yes.
Is
Judge,
this,
that gives us no reference. We need something that.
Well, you can cross them.
Is this during the time that you're working on the ice cream truck with him?
Yes, this is happening when I'm on the truck, and it happened quite a bit. A lot of it, I just kind of let it go because it's bullshit.
Okay.
Sorry.
Was there?
You're fine.
Was there? Let's try not to cuss. Was there a time when you specifically recall an interaction with a younger girl?
Yes.
Tell me about
That's
that.
the one that sticks out in my head the most because he really upset that little girl.
So tell
and
me about
I felt
that.
that was wrong. We were down in Ruskin at these. I don't know how to explain them. Subsidized apartments.
Okay.
There's a little girl that watches a lot of kids in the neighborhood, I guess, while they're in the pool area by the apartments.
Had you seen her before?
Once or twice before this.
Okay.
I didn't see her after this. After the incident happened, Mike asked her if she had a sister, an older sister, and she said yes. And he wanted to see a picture of her, and she didn't know if she had a picture. And then he starts getting irritated when she didn't show it right away, and she kept asking why he wanted to see a picture.
Let me stop you and let me ask you another question. Did he tell this girl why he wanted to see a picture of her?
Yes, he did.
What did he say?
He said that he thinks that her sister was involved in shooting him.
Did that girl ever show the defendant a picture?
Reluctantly, yes.
And did the defendant say anything that you heard after he saw that picture?
That's not her.
Okay.
He got that little girl upset for no reason, and it was bad. It was wrong.
Were there other times that you heard the defendant asking questions of people who would come up to the ice cream truck?
Yes.
Were those questions focused around who would have shot and who would have robbed him?
Yes.
Did
There
the
was
name
one.
Cre-
There was one other incident that happened in out by Ocean Mist where this guy, I guess that they knew. He said that he was saying that I think your son was involved in shooting me, and he got upset about it. And when he asked,
Well, hold on, let me stop you a second. Don't tell me what anyone else said to the defendant, only tell me what the defendant said. So this interaction that occurred over by Ocean Mist, did you know who the man was that the defendant was speaking to?
I've seen him around before, yeah.
Okay. Did you know he had a son?
No.
Okay. Did you hear any comments or statements from the defendant regarding who may have shot him to the man that he's speaking to?
I don't understand what you're asking.
That's fine. So when you hear the defendant asking questions over by Ocean Mist, was it in regards to the individual he's talking to, his son, being involved?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a back and forth exchange between them?
Yes.
Did it get heated?
Somewhat heated.
Okay. Ultimately, did the defendant ask questions about the son being involved?
Yes, he asked the son actually, and the son replied and said, "If it was me that would have shot you, you wouldn't be standing here right now."
Okay. Was this an exchange that you heard?
Yes.
Okay. I want to take a step back and talk about
I saw the whole thing. It wasn't something I just heard. I witnessed it.
That's what I meant. You heard it because you're standing there. I want to go back for a second and talk about the younger girl. What race was she?
I want to say she was African American.
Right. And the photograph that she showed to the defendant, what race was the girl who was in that photograph?
I didn't see the photograph.
Okay. Was the photograph asked, was that your sister? When the defendant was asking to see the photograph, was he asking to see a photograph of the younger girl's sister?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Did the name Creeper ever come up when you were working on the ice cream truck with the defendant?
Yep.
Tell me about it.
That would have been out by Waimama, by the rec center.
Do you know who brought it up?
Do I know the people? No.
Not that you know Creeper, but do you know who the person was that brought that name up?
No. I just know them from being gangbangers up there in Waimama.
Okay. So when we're talking about the name Creeper, who's standing there when that name's brought up?
What do you mean, who's standing there?
Was the defendant there
Yes,
when
the defendant
Creeper's
was
brought
there.
up?
Yes.
What's said by the defendant?
I don't recall.
All right. Do you recall the name Creeper being brought up?
Yes.
Do you recall the area of town where the name Creeper was brought up?
Yes, I do.
So tell me the area.
The area is Waimama. If you've ever been out there, there's a rec center. If you go down one of the main roads, goes way back. We used to call it the drug alley because that's what it was. It was
Okay.
a drug alley.
Not in your mind a great neighborhood.
No.
Now,
We never went to any great neighborhoods.
after the name Creeper is brought up, do you hear that name again?
I hear from Mike more than anything else.
Okay, that's what I want to know about. Tell me why and when you hear the defendant say the name Creeper.
Why? Because he believes that he's the guy that shot him.
So what made you believe that?
Mike wouldn't shut up about him.
What's he saying?
He's saying, I think that's one of the guys that shot me.
Right. Do you hear anything more about the name Creeper? Answer out loud for me.
No.
Right.
No.
Do you hear the name Creeper repeated after that, though?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
The name came up quite a bit.
Did you and the defendant ever discuss a plan to either figure out who robbed and shot the defendant or what you would do after you figured that out?
No.
Did y'all ever come up with a plan?
Well, I mean, his plan was to be a cop, yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that.
He was going to buy a Crown Victoria and dress up like a police officer, and
How do you know?
he told me
How many times?
more than once,
More than twice?
more than twice.
More than 3 times?
Was on the truck with him for a while.
You guys talked about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Did the defendant ever say anything specifically about what he wanted to do if he was going to dress up like a cop?
Yeah, take and kidnap him, basically. Make him disappear.
You said basically, so do you remember his exact words?
No. It's been so long.
Sure. Do you remember the gist or the basics of what he was saying to you?
Yes.
Okay. Back in 2010, were you willing to help the defendant?
I was.
What does that mean?
I was willing to help him find him. And if justice didn't prevail, then yeah, I would have helped him probably make him disappear.
Did things end poorly between you and Michael Keetley when you were working on the ice cream truck?
Say that again?
Did things end poorly between you and Michael Keetley on the ice cream truck?
Yeah.
Is that kind of...
Little by little every day, he would show his true colors. And
Well, I don't want to talk about leading up to it. Did you pull a gun on him?
yes, I did.
Okay, so we can get to things end poorly because you pulled a gun on him. Tell me about that.
Well, I kind of felt like, he's already been shot up once, and we were in a situation where it was a place where we could get picked off. And we're not going into nice neighborhoods.
I'm going to stop you for a second. Do you remember the name of the road that you were on? Stevens Road?
Stevens,
Okay. Stevens kind of a one-way in, one-way out?
yeah,
Were you comfortable in that neighborhood?
no.
Did you tell that to the
Yes, I
defendant?
did, and he thought it was funny.
How'd that make you feel?
Very irate.
All right. Was there further discussions between you and the defendant about how you felt going down Stevens Road?
There wasn't discussions more than berating, name callings, and making me feel little.
All right. Didn't take kindly to that?
No, I did not.
What'd you do?
I told him to let me out, drop me off the truck. Stop the truck right now.
Did he?
No.
What'd you do?
Well, I put the gun to his head,
Where?
to his temple.
All right. What was the defendant doing at this point? Was he driving the truck?
Yes.
Okay. Does he stop?
Yes.
What do you do?
I get out of the truck.
What do you do with the gun?
He made a comment about him. I'm going to take his gun too, and I took and chambered it, and I threw the clip at him, and then I threw the gun at him.
Which gun did you use?
The 45.
When you got off that ice cream truck, did you have that .45 caliber firearm with you?
No.
Where was it?
Thrown at him inside the truck.
Does it sound kind of crazy that you're going to throw a weapon at the person who you just put the gun up to his
Judge,
head?
improper question, whether it sounds kind of crazy for who.
I'll sustain.
What are you thinking when you threw the weapon back at the person you just put the gun up to his head?
What was I thinking?
Yeah, what are you thinking that through?
A lot of nasty curse words and thoughts.
Okay. Bottom line, do you leave that gun on that truck?
Yes.
Where do you go?
I walked down to Domino.
Do you have a friend who lives down there? What's his name?
Wes.
Do you go to his house? Where do you go from there?
I used the phone and called my brother. Got a ride home.
Back over to Bonita?
No. I think I went back to Larry's. Angela's.
Okay.
My ex-wife's.
All right.
I honestly don't remember.
That's fine. Was that the last day you worked
That was the last day I worked for him.
with the defendant? Okay. May I have a moment here?
Yeah.
Mr. Beckwith, were you aware if the defendant was looking for cop uniforms or law enforcement uniforms?
Yes.
Did you all discuss that?
Yeah. He said he actually had some already ordered.
Did you discuss that when you were on the ice cream truck? I'll pass the witness.
Give it a coach.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to go ahead and take our afternoon break. Please do not discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Please do not do any research related to the case. We'll see you back as soon as all of you had an opportunity to stretch your legs, use the restroom, and we'll bring you back into the courtroom. All rise to adjourn. May be seated, sir. You may step down and enjoy the break as well, but you are still in the stand, so please do not discuss your testimony with anyone. What I'll ask is if you can, Mr. Escobar, plan on putting the fancy board somewhere where the witness doesn't have to step down and be out in the front the whole time. I'm not sure if it can just be slid up here and he can stand up here. Oh, yeah, that would actually, yeah. I think we did that yesterday, right?
No, it was down in front, but I don't. Can the witness get through with that right there?
Well, you can slide it in after, but I think we did that yesterday.
Judge, I think that I can put it. I think I can put it here against the wall. I don't think I need to have it. They're going to be able to see. I think. Let's bring this one. Because if you put it here, it cuts half the board off.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Otherwise, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Your fancy board doesn't go up and down on the, I mean, it lift and, like this. You don't have one of those?
They go that HMI 1 or 2.
It's on the flash drive, it's fine.
I'm going to put it on.
You don't even have to have the HDMI plugged in.
No, I know, but I'm going to put it on just in case we have a
It
problem.
was plugged in on one before.
All right. Well, I'll let you all figure it out. I just don't want the witness have to stand down there in front of the witness box the whole time.
Witness first, Judge.
Oh, yes. Good idea. Welcome back, sir. We're going to put you on the witness stand before we bring the jury in. Yes, Deputy, say if you could let them know we're ready. You can sit. They'll let us know before the jury comes in to stand. So you're welcome to sit until they get to the door. I just stand because I sit so much. I take advantage of the opportunity to stand for a little bit.
All right, jury, any questions?
Jury is present and seated. Everyone else may be seated at this time. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, welcome back. So that was our afternoon break. It's almost 3:30 now. If we go an hour and a half, that gets us right to 5. I'm not saying we will go to 5 or past 5, but that would be the time for a break anyway, and it'd kind of be silly to take a break at 5. So we'll finish at or before 5 today. So we are going to now turn to the defense. Oh, anyone discuss the case, or was anyone exposed to anything about the case by show of hands during the break? Excellent. Let the record reflect there are no hands. Again, thank you very much. We're going to turn to the defense for the cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Escobar, you may proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Beckwith.
Afternoon.
Mr. Beckwith, I think that in direct examination you talked a little bit about 2 accidents that you had. One, it's my understanding, happened sometime in 2007, or maybe before or after. The horse accident. You had an accident, correct?
Yes, sir.
With a horse?
Yes.
Is that correct?
I was trampled and dragged, yes.
In what year was that?
2007, 2008. somewhere.
Okay. And prior to that, you worked for a company called AK Cycle. Is that correct?
Before that?
Yeah.
No, I didn't work for them before that.
You worked for them after that?
Yes.
Okay. And so what did you do at AK Cycle?
I custom painted and built bikes.
You built bikes?
Custom painted and built motorcycles.
Built. Okay. AK Cycle, that company was marketed after the AK-47?
No, sir.
It was not.
No. That's what everybody seems to think. But no, it actually stands for Alan and Kevin.
Oh, yeah, but the marketing was for the Russian-style assault weapon, right? That's what
That's what he put on his emblem, yes.
Right? I mean, he was marketing his company for this Russian assault weapon, right?
He might have used it on there, but no, he was using AK Cycle meant Alan and Kevin.
And so you would build motorcycles.
Yes.
Is that correct? What kind of work would you do in building motorcycles? Tell me what specifically you would do.
Well, specifically what I did?
Yeah.
Anything that he asked me to.
And was it like a machine shop of some sort?
Was it a machine shop?
Yeah. Well, what kind of shop was it? How would you build these motorcycles?
With wrenches and screwdrivers. And
It's like a mechanic shop.
Yeah,
There would be all sorts of tools there for you to use. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay. Now, I believe that at some point in time in 2010, law enforcement contacted this AK Cycle business, right? And they asked for you. Law enforcement.
No, they did not.
They did not.
No, actually, I arranged to meet them over there.
They didn't contact AK Cycles.
They did not, no.
Do you know what date that was?
No.
Sometime, obviously, after the homicide?
When I met the police over there at the
Yeah.
AK cycle? Yes.
Now, when you decided to meet the police over there, you decided you were going to bring your wife as a witness, right?
I brought my wife with me, yes.
And the reason that you brought your wife as a witness is because back in 2010, you had a distrust for police officers.
Excuse me?
You had a distrust for police officers back in 2010.
I
That's
don't
one of the
understand
reasons
what
that
mean,
you...
distressed police officer.
Have you ever said that you had a distrust for police officers?
What is he saying?
He doesn't understand the word.
Did you have a distrust for police officers?
Do I have distrust?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That was back in 2010.
It was back long before that, too.
Okay. Is that because of your status as a 3-time convicted felon?
It has something to do with it, yes.
Okay. And so you decided to bring your wife to that meeting with law enforcement.
I
but
decided
when-
to have as many people as possible at that meeting because I don't trust police officers.
And then what happens is that in that particular meeting, when law enforcement shows up, you tell them, I'm not going to
Objection,
talk to you.
hearsay.
Approach. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break. Do not discuss the case amongst yourselves with anyone else. Do not do any research related to the case and avoid any reports of the case outside of the courtroom. Executive, everyone may be seated. Sir, you can stay there. This may not take too long. See, Mr. Escobar, I mean, it's addressed in 801,
It is.
and it says that it is, let's see, let me read it. A statement is not hearsay if the declarant, it would be him, testifies at trial or hearing and is subject to cross-exam, which is what you said, but then there's an end. And the statement is inconsistent with trial testimony and given under oath, subject to penalty of perjury, at a trial proceeding or in a deposition, which is, this doesn't meet that, or is consistent with declarant's testimony and offered to rebut a charge of improper influence, motive, or recent fabrication. It's not that.
Oh yeah, no, it's bias. Absolutely. He's
No,
saying,
it's not
he's
that.
saying, he's saying, listen.
All right, so, so that's the one you're going under. You don't want to hear the other or. It's not that. It's
Judge,
hearsay.
Judge, he is testifying that he is not going, he said to the law enforcement, I am not going to talk to you until I get immunity. That is a statement that is subject to cross-examination, and it shows his motive and his bias, okay, as to why he wants to have immunity or why he doesn't want to talk to law enforcement without immunity. That is not hearsay. If that was the case, most of the individuals that would testify in Hillsborough County courts and throughout the country would not be able to say what he told somebody else, because they have the right to cross-examine him on that particular position. Hearsay is based upon confrontation issues. Do they have the right to confront a particular witness on the subject for which the witness is testifying?
The prior statement would have to be consistent with his testimony and offered to rebut a charge of improper influence, motive. What are you rebutting?
I'm not rebutting anything.
Then it doesn't fall under that exception.
No, because it doesn't stop at rebutting, because it goes to his bias. It goes to his bias. Why is he... Judge, if you want to,
Why don't I
we'll get a
let
case.
one of them,
Sure.
give me a case that says just because the declarant is here, because that's what you were arguing, saying, just because he's here subject to cross-examination, that it's not hearsay. And it's addressed in the rule, but it has an A, it says, unless they're here, and A, B, or C. You're arguing B, that it's offered to rebut. And then, so I asked you, what are you offering to rebut? You said nothing.
No,
You don't have to.
it's not that we're offering it to rebut.
Then it doesn't fall under sub B.
We're offering it because of the
All right,
fact...
I'm going to give you 10 minutes.
Okay.
You give me a case that says just because he's here, it's not hearsay.
Well, I'm going to give you a case. Is Ibar versus State, 938 Southern 2nd, 451, and they're going under 90.803, paren 3, his state of mind, motive. And they say in his state of mind,
Wait,
motive,
give me the 90.803.
90.8033. And if you want to, I can read to you what it
Go ahead,
is.
read it. Go read it. I want to get the rule in front of me. 803.3 though is what you're.
90.803.3.
Okay. Which is an exception to hearsay, right?
It is an exception.
Okay, but we don't get into exceptions unless the statement is hearsay, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so under the first one that we were talking about, it isn't hearsay because the declarant is present. That's what was being argued. It's not hearsay. You said it wasn't hearsay.
I was explaining to you the basis of hearsay and when we have to judge the issues of whether it's reliable and the confrontation clause. Those are the two main things for any hearsay.
Well, let's start with a simple question. Is it hearsay?
Well, I guess because his statement is out of court, that out of court statement. However, it goes to his motive.
Okay, but wait, let me get there. We'll get there. We'll get to the exception, but first we have to accept that it is in fact hearsay.
Okay.
So because it was an out-of-court statement, just because he's here testifying does not mean that it's not hearsay, correct?
No, you're absolutely right there, but the touchstone of reliability is present, and that's why
That's why there's exception. So even though it's hearsay, it's admissible.
It is.
Under exception.
But here we have a further strength, because here we have the right of confrontation, because they're going to have the right of confrontation because he's here, and that goes to the reliability of that particular out-of-court statement. So it is even more reinforced than just 90.8033. And in every hearsay issue, you always have to first start, number one, does the prosecution have the right to confront? Number two, does it have the indicia of reliability? And yes, it's an out-of-court statement, but it's to show his motive, his state of mind at the time that he made it.
We're in a whole different ballpark now, okay? Now before we were fighting over whether it was hearsay or not. And what I heard, perhaps I misunderstood you, was just because he's here, it is not hearsay. And I disagreed with that.
Right.
And that's why I went to read Earhart,
Okay.
because I thought I might be crazy. It is hearsay.
You're not crazy.
But now you're asserting that there is an exception to it. So we're in a whole different ballpark on whether 98033 lets it come in even though it's hearsay. And I'm not disagreeing with you.
Okay.
In fact, I think you might be right on this one. But it not being hearsay, it is hearsay. And just because he's here doesn't mean it gets to come in. There's either got to be an exception or it's not hearsay because of one of those three things where he is present and he is subject to cross-examination. If one of those three things, you're not arguing those three things. You're accepting that it's hearsay, but want to say that it's an exception under 8033.
And Judge,
And it's a good exception.
Okay.
Let me see what the state has to say
I've
about
got a
it.
case too if you want.
Well, go ahead and put the case on the record,
It's
whatever you review.
Ibar versus State, 938 Southern 2nd, 451, 2006, and it is a Florida Supreme Court.
All right, let me hear the state's response. Would the state agree that before we were arguing whether it was hearsay or not, your position was just because he's here doesn't mean it's not hearsay? Is that what you came up and argued?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay, but now they're asserting that it is hearsay, but there's an exception.
And what exception are they going under? Because that's where I'm a little...
8033, then existing mental, emotional, or physical condition.
And what subsection of that?
Sub 2, prove or explain acts of subsequent conduct of the declarant. You had another sub. You were more specific.
It was also two, Your Honor. Two.
Wait, are you not relying on one to prove the declarant's state of mind?
No, we are, but the other one that I argued was 3A2 as well.
Judge, I'm unclear how that's an exception for that statement.
And just remind me, the statement was, I'm not talking to you unless you give me immunity?
That's what he said. He says, I am not telling law enforcement, I am not going to talk to you all until you get me immunity.
Which he gets. And now
Judge, when you get a chance, I'd direct you to a particular section that I think also explains this.
Is this in Earhart?
Yes,
Tell me where.
1073. You have the...
Page 1073?
Yeah, well, this is 2019, so I don't know if it's going to be the same.
No. This is 2020.
Let me give this to you, may I?
Yes.
If you read also that first section, it tells you when it's even not hearsay.
What's the court reviewing?
It's 803.3A, section 803.3A in Earhart. This happens to be the 2019 version. I had the 2020 version. So the thing that's going to be different is the page number.
I've got the section.
I also have the 2022, but
I do too. I've got the 2022. That was just...
in any case, it's section 803.3A, the commentary in the text of Earhart. Now I'm going to go ahead and read that paragraph.
It's on page 1086 of yours. 1086, the very bottom here.
So tell me the state of mind that you believe that the statement, I'm not talking to you unless you give me immunity, is circumstantial evidence of.
His state of mind was that he was not about to say anything to law enforcement unless he got that protection. That's his state of mind at that time, which is important because at a later point in time, he goes to law enforcement and says, I demand that, and they give it to him. And I told you, not only do they give it to him, they give him transactional.
Anything else from the state?
Yeah.
I'm going to allow it as an exception. Not that it's not hearsay. It is hearsay. And I'm going to ask you, Mr. Escobar, after court today to come to the court reporter and see what you... I'm not going to do it out here in open, but I want you to ask the court reporter to pull up the approach and see what you argue.
I will.
All right. Appreciate that.
I'll be there.
All right. I won't.
Well, I thought you were going to be there with me.
No. I'll let you tell me tomorrow before we start
gonna be
court
there
what
with
it said. Let's get the witness first. We went from not hearsay to exceptions, which is...
But you realize that it says it's also non-hearsay. The section I gave you says it's
you don't want me to
non-hearsay
look
as
at
well.
it again, do you?
I can...
You don't want me to look at it again, do you? You want me to reconsider?
I've already won, so
Exactly.
I'm moving on.
Exactly. I found that it's an exception. Do you want to go back and look at whether
No,
it's
we're good,
hearsay?
Judge. We're good.
It's 4 o'clock.
Does that mean you're going to break up my closing? I mean, my...
I don't know. I'm hoping you can get your closing done. Your cross. Sir, you go ahead and have a seat, or if you want, we're going to get the jury, so you can sit until they come, and then you can sit back down after they're seated. It's entirely up to you. We're going to pick up where we left off in just a moment. And I now have 2 different years of Earhart open in front of me, so I can consider different sections at the same time of hearsay and exceptions. My law students are watching and laughing at me right now. Is it off or okay?
All rise, jury entering courtroom.
Jury is present and seated. Everyone else may be seated at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Let me just ask, did anybody discuss the case or was anyone exposed to anything about the case during the last break? Let the record reflect there are no hands. Again, thank you all very much. We're going to pick up where we left off. We're going to go back to the cross-examination. Mr. Escobar, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Beckwith, we're going to go back to the last question that I asked you. When you met with law enforcement, it might not loud enough. When you met with law enforcement, there at AK Cycles or at Allen's, right? You told them you were not going to talk to them unless they gave you immunity.
That is correct.
You demanded immunity, right?
Sir?
You demanded immunity.
Absolutely.
And so Detective Lugo picks you up and takes you over to the state attorney's office. I believe it was on December the 9th, correct?
Yes, when I was served a subpoena.
And you realized when you were served that subpoena gave you immunity.
Yes.
And in fact, not only did it give you immunity, but it was a little broader than that. The prosecutor told you, remember Mr. Pruner?
Yes.
Okay. Prosecutor told you that any statements...
Objection, prior ruling, hearsay.
No, the prior ruling was I was going to allow this. So.
The prosecutor told you that any statements that you made were not going to be used against you ever for any prosecution for anything. Right? Any statements that you made were never going to be used against you for any prosecution ever. That's what he told you.
Not in those words, no.
Well, maybe not in those words, but that's what the substance was, correct? You were going to be giving immunity, and whatever you said, you were protected.
As long as, yes. I didn't want to have to lie.
That's pretty sweet, right? You can say whatever you want to say, and guess what? You're never going to be prosecuted for you. Right? It's pretty good, right?
I don't understand your question. I mean,
Well, you wanted that protection, did you not?
absolutely. I'm not going to incriminate myself without having some kind of protection.
You didn't trust law enforcement.
I still don't.
You didn't trust the prosecution. I can't hear you.
Is that a question?
Yeah, you didn't trust the prosecution, did you?
I don't trust anyone.
So these prosecutors that are right here, you don't trust. Right here. These three ladies here.
Is that a question?
Yes.
Are you asking me if I trust them?
Yeah, you don't. They're prosecutors.
I-
You don't trust them.
If I didn't know them, no, I wouldn't trust them.
Let's talk about your living arrangements back in 2010. May I ask the witness to step down, please?
Yeah, you may step down, please. Should he take the pointer?
Your Honor, we're going to do something a little different. But thank you.
Are you good, sir?
I don't need to see it unless there's an issue.
Just making sure.
Mr. Beckwith, I'm going to show you what's been marked as defense exhibit number.
Ms. Hodges, you can relocate if you
8.
need to. I don't know if you...
Thank you,
Do you
Judge.
recognize that? Okay, what is that?
That is my brother's house. That's Mrs. and Mr. Keetley's, and that's Michael's house.
And do you recognize Bonita Drive there as well?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so this little diagram here fairly and accurately depicts this area that you used to live in and your brother used to live in, correct?
That I stayed at a few times, yes.
Okay. You want to remove 8 in?
Any objection?
No objection.
It'll be admitted.
Okay.
For the record, Mr. Escobar, just identify what's on the screen. Is that
Exhibit
what was just admitted?
The same one. Okay, and so Bonita Drive is here. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And this is the driveway that will lead you to both your brother and sister-in-law's house, as well as
Mr. and Mrs. Keetley.
Mr. and Mrs. Keetley. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. At one point in time, you remember Michael Keetley living up here, right near the
Yes.
Bonita Drive address. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
Okay. And so this is like a pretty narrow road right here, right? This one right here? Want me to draw it for you?
Talk about the driveway?
This one right here, yeah. It's a pretty narrow driveway, right? Basically one car.
Yeah, it's not, you can't three-point turn around in it now.
And there's no lighting, it's pretty dark at night, correct?
Correct?
But if you're driving at night, you've got your headlights on, and you're able to see the road, right?
Okay.
Is that a yes?
I'm assuming so.
Well, have you driven, or have you been in a car driving down this driveway and been able to see the road?
Yes.
Okay.
You mean from 301 or from
Bonita. From Bonita, if you're driving down this road, you just put your headlights on at night, right? Okay.
Mr.
Now-
Escobar, the record has a, I need a yes or a
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Please, because the court report is...
I apologize.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about where your brother and his wife lived. Larry was your brother?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Right here in this
Okay.
patch of trees.
Right here in this patch of trees? Okay. And is their property also fenced in with a little fence? Meaning, little fence around
Yes.
their property?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yeah, actually the fence is over here more.
Ah,
Right across
okay.
there.
So let me redraw it for you to make sure that it's correct. Okay.
There's a fence. Well, actually the fence goes right here.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what.
Out, and then up right there.
Perfect. You did it for me. Thank you. So now, in addition to that fence being around your brother's house, you would agree that all of this property, all of this property, all of this property, all belongs to Michael's parents, right?
That is correct.
It's about 20 acres.
Oh, if you say so.
Okay. Now, there's also a little gate here that allows individuals to go from your brother's property onto this back area here of
I
the
don't
Keetley
remember
property.
the gate being back there.
Have you ever tried?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I've mowed the property before, so I've never seen a gate back there.
You've never seen a gate back there. Okay, and let me see before we get done with this particular map, if there's anything else. You talked about a berm, correct? That you were shooting at when you were shooting your gun, according to your testimony, with Michael Keetley and his father. And you said, hey, we were back here in some berm. Is that correct?
So, this is the house. There's a burn pile right there. And there's this tree line right there, so we would have been shooting right to that burn pile.
Okay. And what do you...
Which was a truck. There was a car there at the time.
A car. And I think you indicated that the car was a small car,
Yeah.
right? Either an MG or
Alfa Romeo.
an Alfa Romeo, or you said maybe a Datsun, right?
One of those similar type cars, yes.
Okay. And so that's where you all were shooting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You may take your seat. Now, when you were living there with Larry and Sandra, you were living there because you were going through a divorce.
That's correct.
And even before you were going through that divorce and living there, you would frequently visit your brother, obviously Larry.
Yes.
Larry was pretty close. You all were pretty close, right?
Were? Yep.
I know your brother passed away. My condolences. Is that correct?
That's not the one that passed away.
He's not the one that passed away. One of your brothers did, right? Okay. Larry's still alive. Okay.
Yes.
Does he still live there?
No.
Okay. So somewhere in the summer of 2010 is when you moved there to your brother's place throughout the year of 2010, right? You moved
I've been
there. You
moving
actually
in and
moved
out of that place since 2008.
there. What's that?
I had been moving in and out of Larry's house since 2008.
Well, but in June, did you move there for the long term between June and the end of the year?
No.
You didn't. Where were you living?
No, I moved in back with my wife, and then I moved out of my wife's house after my accident with the car, back in with my mother.
Back with your mother. Okay, then give me some months. I want to know exactly when that happened.
Couldn't tell you.
You couldn't tell me. But certainly in the summer of 2010, you were living with your brother. That you know.
At some point, yes.
Okay. Your divorce is finalized, what, sometime in 2009?
I think we got divorced, yeah, but we were still together.
Okay. Now, you have shot firearms in the past, right?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Not only, by yourself, but with other people as well, right?
Okay. I'm. When you're talking about
Well,
pre-80s,
No, I'm talking about, anywhere in the year 2010. You shot
no,
firearms.
no, I wasn't shooting any time.
So in 2010, you didn't shoot any firearms.
The only time I shot was with Mike. That was the only time in 2010 I ever shot.
The only time.
That is the only time.
And that was, so you're telling me that you've only shot on the Keetley property. in
During 2010, yes.
Okay. After 2010, you shot on the Keetley property.
No, I was shooting on Larry's property, but it wasn't me shooting. That was my buddy. He wanted to try out his new 22. I took him out there to shoot it.
Well, it wasn't on your brother's property because there were some goats there, and Sandra didn't want you to shoot there on your brother's property, and so you went over to the Keetley's property, correct?
No, we were still on Larry's property.
Your friend was Marty, right?
Yes.
Remember the following questions and answer. Why was you out there target shooting, sir?
Objection and proper impeachment.
No, it's not. 11 through
Tell her where you're at.
11 through 18.
Of what?
140. Devil. Yeah. Remember the following questions. Did you ever, why were you out there target shooting, sir? Don't you understand you can't be in possession of guns and bullets? And you say mostly Marty had that. Marty had just purchased this 22 and had no place to shoot. Sir, you're not allowed to go on the Keetleys anymore. Your answer. Nobody ever told me I couldn't trespass.
Objection, prior ruling.
Nobody ever told me I couldn't trespass.
Wait. Approach. within the limited that we discussed?
Yes, Your Honor. And so you shot your guns on the Keetley property with your friend Marty.
Is that a question? Or is that a
Yes,
statement?
it is a question. You shot your guns on the Keetley property with your friend Marty. That's your testimony.
What do you want me to say?
The truth. That would be. That's what I want you to say is the truth. Did you shoot your guns on the Keetley property with Marty?
I don't own a gun.
Did you shoot your guns, meaning Marty had brought in a gun, right? Marty wanted to shoot his gun, his brand new gun that he had gotten. And you went with Marty to the Keetley property and you shot, right?
Okay.
Okay. That wasn't hard, was it? Now, it's quite common for people out in the country, out there in Ruskin, to shoot their guns on their properties, right? Nothing unusual about that.
I never thought anything unusual about it.
Okay, so you would agree with me. It's not unusual.
Okay.
Now, Michael was living with his parents, correct? In 2010, Michael was living with his parents after he was shot.
Yes.
And
Yes,
someone
he
tried to
was.
kill him, right?
Yes, he was.
Okay. And there was a reason that he was living with his parents, correct? Because he couldn't live alone, right? Because of his injuries.
Okay, if you want to say that. I don't believe that, but
You would agree that you needed a job, right? And Michael needed someone because of his current disabilities, right?
say that one more time.
You needed a job, and Michael needed you to help him because of his current disabilities on the ice cream truck,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So you start working with Michael somewhere in July or August, is that correct?
Yes. June, July, August, somewhere in there.
Okay. And you were aware that Michael in June had had a tendon transfer surgery on his hand, correct?
No. I'm not familiar with any of his surgeries or anything that he had to do.
$12.82. You remember being before this court on February the 7th of 2020, before the Honorable Judge Sabella, and being placed under oath to tell the truth and nothing but the truth to help you at a hearing, right?
Can you give
Yes.
us the page number again?
1282.
Thank you.
And this question was asked of you, and you gave the following answer. Okay, you're aware that he, being Michael, had just had tendon transfer surgery in the beginning of June, right? You were aware of that when you went to work for him. He had just had another surgery on his hands. Your answer, yep, he had a surgery, yeah.
I know he's had surgeries, but you're asking me specific surgeries. I don't know what the hell he's had.
Well, but this question was asked of you of this particular surgery, tendon transfer surgery. And that's what you said, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
But I didn't mean that I knew that what kind of surgeries he had. I knew that he's had surgeries.
You would agree that the reason that you went to go work with him again was because he was physically pretty limited.
Yeah, that's redundant. Let's go.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. He had a worse disability on one hand than the other.
Yes.
And the hand that he had the worst disability on was his right hand. Right?
Okay. Didn't stop him from shooting.
You agree that he had limited motion in that hand.
You're asking me to be a doctor? Because I'm not a doctor.
Well, weren't you able to see the fact that he had limited motion in his hand? You don't have to be a doctor for that, do you?
I have limited motion in my shoulder. Can you tell?
I didn't ask you about your shoulder. I'm asking you about your hand, Mr.
I'm trying to
Keetley's
answer
hand.
your question with...
You don't know. Because I guess you never looked at his hand.
I looked at his hands.
Okay. Did he have limited motion on his hand?
I would say it's somewhat limited.
Limited use of his hands, and he had difficulty getting up and down, right?
I never saw that.
1282. Is 1282 to 1283. Lines 24 through 25 and 1. And he had, this is a same hearing that we had before Judge Sabella. I'm sure you remember that. Following questions and answers. And he had difficulty getting up and down, correct? Okay.
Okay.
Well, can you describe the difficulties that he was having?
I mean, when you get in an accident, what kind of... I don't understand what you're wanting me to describe.
Just tell me what you saw of the problems that he was having getting up and down. I mean, if you were with him, right?
I didn't see him have problems getting up and down. I saw him having problems moving his arm, but it wasn't that bad.
Well,
Didn't stop him from being able to shoot a pistol. I don't know what you're trying to get at with me.
you remember being sworn under oath at a deposition on January the 31st of 2013.
I remember being sworn in for a lot of things.
Okay. You remember the following questions and answers, page 54. Question, talking about Michael. Inability to get up and down all the time and stuff like that? Yes. Is that true? Were you being truthful back then?
Yes, stuff like that. I mean, he did. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, he was shot up, but it didn't stop him from being able to start a vehicle, get in a vehicle, or shoot a gun.
Well,
So I don't know what else you're trying to ask of me.
well, you kind of termed him that he was, as you call it, gimped up.
Yep.
Tell the jury what gimped up means.
Means that he didn't move normal.
Can you give him any better description than that?
No, I can't.
You can't. Your testimony is that he was riddled with shots, right? Like bullet shots. That's your statement. That he was riddled with shots.
Yeah, you should have seen the van. It was all bloody still when I saw it.
And by your own words, he was, I'm not going to use the ugly word, effed up. Those were your words.
Sure.
Michael Keetley, in
Okay.
your words, was effed up. Right?
Yeah. I'm effed up. Can you tell?
We'll let the jury decide that. And so the way that it was going to work is that you were going to take the money, you were going to exchange the product, and Michael Keetley was going to drive the ice cream van, right?
That's exactly what happened.
But those were the terms, okay? He's going to sit and drive because he knows the route. You're going to do the rest. Right?
Yes.
In fact, Michael Keetley would rarely leave the driver's seat. Rarely. During the time that you were working with him.
Sounds fairly accurate. Yep.
And the financial arrangements, as you said in direct examination, they were pretty generous, right?
Yeah, I felt they were generous.
And the reason that they were generous is that Michael Keetley could not run that truck without you. That's the reason he gave you 50-50, right?
I don't know.
Well, you were surprised that he was giving you 50-50, right?
Yes.
And the reason that he was giving you 50-50 is that he could not operate that business.
That's not why I
without
was
you.
surprised.
Don't talk over each other. Wait till you finish the question.
Is that correct? Couldn't operate
No,
without
that's not
you.
why I was surprised. I was surprised because he's a chintz.
Oh, okay. That's why you were surprised. Now, you realize, as a convicted felon 3 times, you cannot possess a firearm. That's like a no-brainer, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so part of your duties with Mr. Keetley in this ice cream truck, part of your duties is that you were going to possess a .45 caliber semi-automatic weapon. That's what you were going to do.
His.
Did you listen to my question? You were going to possess a .45 caliber.
His.
Did I ask you whose it was right now? That wasn't the question. My question to you is, you were going to possess that as part of your duties on that truck.
Yes.
You hadn't told him that you were a 3-time convicted felon, right?
Oh, he already knew that.
Well, how did he know? You didn't
Because
tell him.
yes, I did. Oh, yes, I did.
Tell
He
me
knew
what-
it. He
tell
knew
me
it
what
before I
day-
ever got on that van that I was a convicted
Tell
felon.
me what date you told him.
The day I started working with him.
Oh, so was that part of an application process?
Okay, sure. If you want to be a smartass to me, I mean, I'll be a smartass back.
Wait, I'm not going to allow that. All right, just answer the questions.
That
Thank
first
you.
that first day that you went out with Michael Keetley, you had that .45 caliber weapon on you.
No. Sitting on the side on the holster. It was already set up.
Page 56, lines 13 through 16. Remember being placed under oath
Yes.
in a deposition
Yes.
on January the 31st of 2013?
You're talking as if possession, as if I'm holding it on my side.
Listen to my
I've tried
question.
to explain where I've had the gun.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. He's not being responsive.
Okay, hold on. Listen to the question, and if he confronts you with a prior inconsistent statement, I'll give you a chance to explain it after he presents the statement to you.
You remember being placed under oath in a deposition?
Yes.
Okay. And you know what the oath means, right?
Yes.
What does it mean?
To tell the truth and the whole truth.
Okay. And so just like today when you came before this court, you had to raise your right hand and tell the truth and nothing but the truth to help you God, right?
Hail Odin.
Right?
Hail Odin.
Okay. And so remember the following questions and answers that were posed to you under oath back on that day. Question. Okay. And did you have the .45 on you? Answer. Yes, I did. Question. And was it loaded? Answer. Yes, it was. Question. Did you have that holstered? Did you use that side belt holster, I guess? Answer, it was holstered, yes. That's the only safety safety the handgun had. So not only was it on you, but it was on you with a holster.
No, it's on the side. When I say possession, Your Honor, I mean that it's on the vehicle. I've never had it on my side, on a belt, or anything.
That .45 caliber weapon was loaded, correct?
Yes.
And you had a side belt holster on you, did you not?
No. It was on the vehicle.
And so you must have been mistaken when you were testifying in this deposition.
I guess that was a misinterpretation.
Even though it's closer in time to 2010, because this deposition happened in 2013.
Okay.
Now, let's talk a little bit about that particular holster and that gun. Your testimony is that there is no safety on that gun, right?
That is correct.
Would you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a safety is?
The safety is usually a switch that you can have on a gun to where if it's loaded, you can't accidentally pull the trigger.
And this gun did not have it, right?
No, sir.
And that's the reason that the gun, for safety reasons, should be in a holster, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you believed that this particular firearm was a Glock, but you're not really sure of that, right? Because it didn't say Glock on it.
No.
Right?
Glocks don't say Glock on them.
Oh, okay. So the manufacturer Glock of a .45 semi-automatic, they don't put the name Glock anywhere on that firearm.
I believe it was in the serial numbers. It's in the gold on the handle that said GL.
GL. So that's what you saw, GL. Is that correct? You didn't see Glock anywhere.
No.
Just GL. Okay. And where was that GL?
It's on the gold part in the serial number.
Well,
Yeah, there's
is that
the
on?
handle.
I'm not much with guns, but is that on like the handle, or is
Actually,
that
where you
on-
grab the handle, it's right above. It should be right there. It's a gold bar that had the serial numbers right on it.
Okay, and so that's the only place on that gun that said GL, and you interpreted that as being Glock.
Correct.
Okay. Now, you indicated, I think, initially in direct, maybe I'm wrong, but you said that it was plastic, right?
Composite.
And so there's nothing on that gun other than it's a plastic gun, is what your testimony is.
No, there's a metal barrel, but it's a loose barrel.
Well, there's a little bit more than just a metal barrel, isn't it, on a Glock? What other parts of a Glock are metal? Slide? The slide is metal, right?
I don't know.
Well, you had the gun in your possession, right? You had the gun in your possession. It said GL. Is the slide metal or composite?
I only shot the gun once.
Is the slide metal or composite?
Couldn't tell you. I think it's all composite, except for the barrel.
Except for the barrel. Well, then, I thought your testimony was that the reason that Glock made that gun is so that it could go through airport security without being detected. That's your testimony, right?
That was what I was assuming Glocks were made for.
Well, how can it go through airport security if it's got a metal barrel without being detected?
Good point. Don't know.
But that's your testimony that, hey, this company Glock made it so that people could get it through the airport without it being detected.
I don't know. Don't care.
Well, did you ever try to get one of your Glocks? through
One
the
of my
airport?
Glocks. I don't own Glocks.
But
I
you
don't
seem to
own
know-
guns.
You seem to know a lot about the way you can get a Glock through an airport security, right?
How would I know how to get to airport security?
That was your statement. That Glocks are made out of plastic and therefore they were manufactured for that reason.
Yeah, you got me all confused. I don't remember ever making this type
Well,
of statement.
you know that Glocks were made in Austria, correct?
Nope. I don't know that.
That's irrelevant. Move on.
Now, you indicated on direct examination that while you were on this truck with Michael selling ice cream, that Michael had 2 guns.
Yes, that is correct.
He didn't have 2 guns. All he had was a little .22 that he kept on a...
382. He had a 380
He had a little .22.
and a 380.
Can I finish my question? I think the jury deserves to hear questions and answers. He had a little slip or a little cut on the seat that he would fit that .22, right?
No, that was the 380.
That was
22 you used to keep in the stock.
Okay. Page 56. Lines 3 through 6. Question was asked, I know quite a bit about guns myself, sir. Your answer was, they were all handguns. Mike had a .22 that he kept on his driver's seat. There was like a tear in the cushion, and it sat there, so it wasn't like... You remember that? That's what you said, under oath. But now today you're telling... Okay.
There is a tear in the seat.
And you said that's where he kept a little .22, right?
Okay.
Today you're trying to tell this jury something completely different, right?
Did he have another gun?
No, you told the jury that the .22 wasn't there.
It's been so long. What do you want me to say?
The truth.
I'm trying to tell you the truth.
He had the .22 in the tear. You had the .45 on you. On you. Correct?
Not on me. No.
Sustain this, ask and answer. Move on.
Now, your job there was sort of like a bodyguard, right?
Yes.
That weapon had a clip
Yes.
with bullets.
Yes.
How many bullets?
Don't know.
Let's talk a little bit about, before I get too far, you indicated that at one point in time you were shooting on the Keetley property on some vehicles that were old vehicles, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what color those were?
What? What color what was?
The vehicles that you were shooting at. Tell the jury what color those vehicles were.
The MG was rusty. I want to say it was white.
Anything else other than the MG? Because I guess you weren't really sure whether it was an MG or a Dachshund or a
No.
Alfa Romeo or. But
One of them kind of
But
convertibles.
you're saying that it was just white,
Rusty and white, yeah.
rusty and white. Okay. And so that you put holes in that vehicle, right?
I believe we did.
Okay. And you said that that vehicle was where on this property? Can you please step down if you can and let's show the jury where those vehicles were that you were shooting at. Hold up, I'll make it easier for you. Look, I'm going to... Danielle. I think I gotta get that a little bit, right? Okay, there you that helps you at all. And then, right in this area over there. Right there. Okay, so how many vehicles were there? Just one. Just one vehicle. And that's where you were shooting? Yeah. There's a burn pit. Okay, vehicle is in burn pit. Okay.
Mr. Escobar, I'm sending the jury home at 5.
Yes, Your Honor.
Just wanted to let you know.
We'll probably have to resume tomorrow, but we're good.
Not a problem. Just wanted to let you know. Break at 5.
Now, you indicated something about Michael Keetley telling you that this 45 was unregistered.
Untraceable.
Untraceable. Untraceable. Okay. And so did he tell you what made it untraceable?
No.
You've ever purchased guns yourself?
No.
You haven't. So you don't know the ins and outs of
No.
manufacturers to dealers and what
No.
their requirements are. So the only thing he said to you was untraceable.
It's been so long ago, I don't even know what he said.
Well, what did that mean to you?
What do you mean? What did it mean to me?
Yeah. But when he said the word untraceable, what did it mean to you?
Didn't mean anything to me.
That's what I thought. Now, you had a very good friend by the name of Wesley Smith. Right?
Yes.
You and Wesley Smith are good friends. Right?
Yes.
In fact, he was a neighbor of yours when you were living in Apollo Beach. Right?
Yes.
2 houses down. And unfortunately, you were involved in an automobile accident with him, correct?
Yes.
That was the second accident that you had. The first one was a horse accident. The second one,
No.
no, the opposite?
No. The accident I had with Wes was long before all this ever happened.
Okay. Was that an automobile accident?
Yes.
Okay. And so you would
I
hang
lost
out.
my ankle in it.
You would hang out with Wesley as much as you could, right?
What are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say that you're good friends, and you would hang out with him as much as you could,
I like to hang out with him, and plus he was teaching me how to do machine work.
because he was a machinist, right?
Yes.
And
Very
what-
good machinist.
Yeah, I understand he's a very good machinist. So what does a machinist do? Why don't you tell the jury what a machinist does?
A machinist does things like we were making a good example is brake sticks for the railroad company.
You make parts, right?
We make them with an end mill machine. It kind of looks like a drill press that moves on a table back and forth 2 different ways. Make measurements down to the thousandth of an inch.
It's highly technical, right?
Can be, yes.
And you're building sometimes very, very small parts,
Hmm.
and they have to be done with great precision, right?
Yes.
Because if you don't do them with great precision, whatever you're building for may not work, right?
Yes.
And so Mr. Wesley Smith has had a lot of experience doing that, right?
Yes.
In fact, he used to work for a company that would make parts for guns.
No.
Never.
Not that I know of.
Not that you know.
No. I know that he used to work for a company that used to make top secret parts for the military, for the jets.
What about Guncraft? Ever heard of that name, Guncraft?
I mean, I know what a gun crafter is.
No. Do you know the name of the company called Guncraft? No. Okay. So at least he didn't share with you that, right? Because you don't know. You don't know anything about him making parts to a gun.
No.
Okay. Now, he would live for at least the year 2010 and before at a location called 801 Domino Drive, which was very close to Ocean Mist Community, correct?
Yes.
801 Domino Drive was kind of like the street behind the Ocean Mist Circle,
Just about, yeah.
right?
Just about.
Okay.
You're
And so
close.
he had been living there for quite a long time, right?
Don't know how long he'd been living there.
What's that?
Don't know how long he'd been living there.
You don't know how long he's been living there?
No.
You didn't know that he's been living there since the late 90s?
No?
But he had his machine shop there,
Okay.
right? You knew that.
Yeah.
Because you would go over there to the machine shop and you'd help him, right?
Yeah, prior to 2008.
And so he was trying to teach you as much as he could while you were helping him, right?
Yeah.
And you were interested in that because you kind of liked the fact that you could make these small, intricate parts for all kinds of things, right?
I just like to learn.
And he was teaching you.
Yep.
Okay. Now, while you were doing this ice cream run with Michael Keetley, one of the routes that you all would have is going by the Ocean Mist community, as well as the Domino Drive street, right?
Yes.
And you'd go by there to sell ice cream.
Yes.
Okay. And at times you all would stop and you would visit with Mr. Smith there in that particular area, correct?
Yes.
In fact, you continue to go to that Domino address even after the homicides took place in this case, right?
Not really sure.
Well, you know that Mr. Smith moved from the Domino Drive arrest, correct?
Yeah.
And do you know if that was shortly after the homicide or was that right before the homicide?
I'm not really sure. I think it was before the homicide that he moved, and I think he was just working in the shop.
And do you know the reason why he moved?
No. It's probably to save money.
Page 59. Would possibly your transcript of a deposition help you refresh your recollection concerning that issue?
Okay.
Okay. Page 59. Line 13 through 15. Okay. I want you to read line 13 through 15 while I pick this up. Do you read it?
Yes.
Okay. Does that kind of refresh your recollection as to why you thought that Mr. Smith moved from that
It
address?
said for the money.
Because he needed it to maintain
Rent
it.
out his house. And
He was going to lose his house.
Relevance.
There's some relevance to that.
I'll give you a little leeway to show me some relevance.
At least you were under the understanding that he moved because he needed to rent his house in order to keep it.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know. I mean, I knew that he rented his house out so he can save some money and live with his mom, and rent his house out and have some income from it.
Okay. And do you know when it was that he rented that house after he moved out?
Objection, relevance.
Now, Domino Drive and the Ocean Mist community. Would you tell the jury what Latin life is?
Excuse me?
Latin life.
What is it?
Yeah. Is Latin life a street gang?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know about all that stuff. I'm an independent.
Page 50. Lines 2 through 6. Remember that same deposition, being sworn to tell the truth?
Okay.
And the question was asked, what is Latin life? He said, that's one of the places on Ocean Mist where we would stop and sell ice cream. Question, is that a street gang, sir? Answer, I believe so, yes. Is Latin life a street gang?
I guess.
Well, why don't you tell the jury, you made an interesting statement on direct examination. Tell the jury what a gangbanger is.
A gangbanger is somebody who's in a gang.
And why do they call the last part banger?
Got me. Why don't you enlighten me?
So you have no idea why they call them gang bangers.
I figured it's just a term they use. Why don't you enlighten me on the gangbanger?
Now, obviously you've seen gang tags in that Ocean Mist community, correct?
Yeah. If you want to call them gangs. If you want to call them all gangs. I mean, a lot of people just put on their own Tim was here or whatever, TC or who knows.
Have you seen gang tags in the Ocean Mist community?
Yes, I've seen all kinds of tags.
And why don't you tell the jury what a gang tag is?
A gang tag, I guess, is something that somebody spray paints on the wall with some kind of symbol or something.
Their turf, right?
I'm assuming so.
You tag it, it's my turf. Right? I tag it, my turf.
Does that mean if I go on the wall downstairs and piss on it, it's mine?
Now, while you were working on this ice cream truck, you were trying to find out in this community who had robbed and shot Michael Keetley, correct? You had. You were trying to find out.
Okay.
And one of the reasons that you were trying to find out was because there was a reward.
Okay.
And it was a nice, big, fat, juicy one, right?
If you say so, I don't think it's a juicy reward.
You weren't working, right?
Yep.
You needed money. Yep.
Okay.
And the reward was nice and juicy, right?
Okay. It was $25,000 is what they said was the reward.
You could have used
And that's
that,
not why I was looking for them.
You could have used that $25,000, couldn't you?
I could use it now.
And so you would engage in conversations with people in the community to try to see if they had information. You.
I would engage in conversation with everybody I meet.
And not only would you engage in conversations when you were with Mr. Keetley, you would engage in conversations with people in the community when you were in the truck or the van by yourself, doing the run yourself. I think you said you did 1 or 2 runs by yourself, right?
I remember doing one run by myself.
And even in that one run that you did by yourself, you were out there asking people in the community, hey, give me some information on who did this to
Yeah,
Michael
that's
Keetley.
not what I was doing. I was just having conversations.
Oh, about the fact that someone had robbed and almost murdered him, right?
Yep.
Because you wanted to get information, because you needed $25,000 reward that was out there. That was your motivation.
Yeah, that is not my motivation. If you think money's my motivation, you're just a bad lawyer.
You certainly weren't doing this out of the goodness of your heart, were you, Mr. Beckwith?
Not just out of my goodness of my heart, no.
John, I think that's a great place to stop, and then we will resume tomorrow.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, since I had promised you 5 and 6, you've been sitting there for an hour and a half. It's in nobody's best interest. I know you need a break, so we're not going to take a break now and come back at 5:30 and keep you here all night. Please do not discuss the case amongst yourselves with anyone else. Please do not do any research related to the case, and avoid any reports of the case outside of the courtroom. All rise for the jury. We'll start at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Jury has exited. Everyone may be seated. Wait for the door to close. The witness wants to say something. Go ahead.
Am I done now?
You're done for now, so I'm going to send you out. Don't talk to anybody about your testimony, and you have to be here tomorrow morning before 9 o'clock.
Again.
Yes, again. Thank you.
And Your Honor, we instruct him not to watch anything also.
Absolutely. Sir, there are reports about this case outside of the courtroom on the news media. Please avoid reading or watching anything in addition to discussing anything about your testimony or the case. Thank you. We'll see you back here before 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Have a safe trip home and a safe trip back in the morning. For timing purposes, Mr. Escobar, can you give us an idea of approximately how much longer you believe the cross of this witness will be?
Another hour.
So you have an hour. So state, as far as having other witnesses tomorrow, you don't necessarily have to tell them to be here at 9 o'clock. I don't know how long you anticipate the redirect of this witness will be, but Mr. Escobar has indicated he has another hour. So if we get started at 9, which we haven't really done every day, we've started a little later than 9, I don't anticipate that we'll be getting to the next witness until 10-something. But I suspect you have witnesses that you can have available shortly after 10?
We do, Judge.
All right. Anything else from the state?
Nothing from the state.
Anything from the defense?
No, sir.
Thank you all. We'll see you in the morning. I'll be in the courtroom a few minutes before 9. Have a nice evening.